Spotlight on America presents Automatic Brake Systems.
The dummy is set, ready for your run.
It's a safety feature in most new cars, and we discover potentially fatal flaws.
That's one of the problems with a lot of these new technologies is the way they're advertised is kind of flash bang. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Now what we learned is galvanizing action in Congress.
You are pointing out something that is really, really important for the consumer to know.
A toxic legacy.
Do you believe there are people getting sick right now because of what's happened there?
Yes, I do.
A hazardous firefighting foam used by the U.S. military is leaking into public drinking water.
The Department of Defense has known for 30 years that those chemicals were there and that foam was causing problems.
It's a problem, we discovered, that may be impacting communities living near military bases nationwide. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell.
I really truly believe that we have saved lives.
Football is known for its high speed and brute force, but what happens when these athletes are pushed too far?
There are times when I just really think, what would life be like now?
We bring you the story of an all-pro lineman whose tragic death forever changed the game. And it's called Chance Academy.
Let me see you jump. Good job, everybody.
A small school inspired by a childhood shaped by the horrors of genocide.
I'm here because people sacrificed their lives to save my parents.
We explore how one woman's lifelong commitment to supporting the underdog is transforming lives.
When you get in a car these days, the ride is supposed to be safer than ever, with manufacturers adding futuristic features designed to keep drivers in their lane, warn about blind spots, and even stop the car to prevent a crash. But all that technology is not without its limits. Spotlight on America discovered potentially fatal flaws in one of the most critical systems designed to keep us safe. It can happen in an instant. A car slams into an unseen pedestrian in the dark of night. Oh! It's a chilling scenario that plays out on America's roadways more often than most people know. The pedestrians here at the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's testing lab in Southern Virginia are fake, but the implications are real.
It doesn't get any easier to watch, even though you know it's a dummy.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's tough when you're in the vehicle.
David Ayler is the Institute's Vice President of Active Safety Testing, and he designed these crash scenarios to try to assess the performance of what are known as automatic emergency braking systems, or AEBs. It's a technology that manufacturers include in most new cars these days, and it's designed to take control of the vehicle and stop it before a collision. But, as we saw, they don't always work, and they're especially ineffective in the dark.
The dummy is set, ready for your run.
Spotlight on America was given a front row seat as professional drivers drove straight at the dummy at designated speeds to see if the brakes would spring into action, unprompted by the driver. If you've seen the ads on TV, that's probably not the performance you were expecting. The commercials are convincing.
To even be able to detect danger.
They show the automatic emergency brakes working flawlessly, but they leave out the fact that these systems often fail to work reliably when they're most needed. According to a new study by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, AEBs do reduce the likelihood of a pedestrian crash by 32% in the daylight. But in dark, it found cars equipped with the system do no better than unequipped cars when it comes to protecting against a pedestrian crash.
I wasn't that surprised.
That's troubling information for Michael Brooks, the executive director of the Center for Auto Safety.
If you buy a vehicle with this equipment on it, shouldn't the expectation of the consumer be, if I get an emergency situation, it will work?
That's one of the problems with a lot of these new technologies is the way they're advertised is kind of flash bang, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but in actuality, it works some of the time and it doesn't work other times. And we still have a long way to go before it's perfect, if we ever get there.
And in the meantime, pedestrian traffic fatalities are soaring to their highest level in 40 years. And 3/4 of those crashes happen at night.
How urgent is it, given the increase in pedestrian deaths, that this equipment works and works at night?
I think it's absolutely critical. We need a baseline performance standard that sets the absolute lowest limit we're willing to accept for this safety performance.
Congress passed a bill this year that requires every new vehicle to be equipped with automatic emergency braking systems. But how well the systems are required to work and under what conditions remains to be seen.
They save lives.
Illinois Congresswoman Cheri Bustos helped pass the bill.
We're at a point where some of the technology works, some of it doesn't work very well. How do we incentivize manufacturers to all get to a consistent place where they're using, even across their own models, technology that works the best?
I would be willing to take a look at incentivizing our manufacturers to say, let's get to this perfect product as soon as possible. And then you back up that with looking at hardcore legislation. Are there penalties if you don't get on board? Do we hit a certain date where we say, okay, you either get this right or you're going to face some penalties?
The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety is coming out with ratings that evaluate nighttime performance of AEBs on a 3-point scale. So far, only 4 of 23 vehicles they tested earned all 3 points. More than half earned a 1 or 0. For Congresswoman Bustos, it comes down to making certain American consumers aren't being left in the dark.
You are pointing out something that is really, really important for the consumer to know. So let's make sure that the public is informed of what they're buying.
Imagine that a man-made toxic chemical has been poisoning the water in your home for years. That's what residents of one island north of Seattle in the Puget Sound area say has been happening for quite some time, endangering their health. The culprit? The U.S. military. Drive over Deception Pass in Washington State and you'll be exposed to some of America's most beautiful views. But here, at this scenic spot on Whidbey Island, just north of Seattle, there are growing concerns about what else people are being exposed to from this island's naval air station. So you moved here for the beauty of the island?
The beauty, yeah.
And you discovered something else?
Right. These chemicals are a curse.
The chemicals environmental activist Rick Abraham is talking about are known as PFAS, a set of man-made toxins which have been tied to cancer and other health problems. For decades, these chemicals were used in a type of firefighting foam on military bases, sprayed by the gallon on runways during training exercises and to douse fires, including here at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island. Government leaders confirmed those toxins seeped their way into the soil and drinking water of surrounding communities.
Do you believe there are people getting sick right now because of what's happened there?
Yes, I do.
On Whidbey Island, the Navy's own tests show levels of one type of PFAS chemical in the drinking water that's more than 30,000 times what the EPA now considers to be unsafe.
The people who cause the pollution should be responsible for cleaning it up. You cause harm to someone else, you're responsible for fixing the problem. Common sense, common law. So the Navy needs to deal with this situation.
The situation extends far beyond Whidbey Island, with more than 700 military bases either known or suspected to have PFAS contamination. That means millions of Americans are potentially at risk, according to Melanie Benesh, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Environmental Working Group.
So if you have been living near a military base for a long time, it's possible that you have been drinking water that's contaminated, and you could be at risk of seeing health effects from those exposures.
This summer, her organization looked at the 50 military sites dubbed the filthiest in the U.S. by Congress, spanning 30 states and including Whidbey Island, and found that while they've all launched investigations, none have begun the phase of actually cleaning up.
Part of it is just DoD slow walking this issue. They have known that PFAS are dangerous for decades. So I think the Department of Defense is committed to cleaning up these sites eventually. But the question is, how long is it going to take?
The Department of Defense refused an interview with Spotlight on America and did not answer our specific questions about timelines for cleanup. On Whidbey Island, the Navy told us their number one priority is to identify contaminated drinking wells, and it's providing bottled water to some island residents. The Navy says it is also transitioning homes to city water lines, and officials told us it's premature to estimate a date to start cleanup. That leaves Whidbey Island residents like Brian Christensen with troubling questions. He lives just steps away from the base and sees the planes fly overhead every day.
My kids have grown up their whole life here. I've got 4 of them. And, they play down here. And they're in the environment. In this environment with these chemicals, the field is uneven, so it tends
Without any definitive answers from the Navy, he's left to wonder what the impacts of those toxic chemicals may be on his loved ones.
Whose responsibility do you think it is to answer those questions?
If this was a private party, you'd go to court. You would take them to court and you would say, hey, you can't do this. You're contaminating me with your chemicals from your place. But here, because it's the Navy, you can't do that. My biggest concern is the not knowing. We just don't know what the long-term implications are. I'm gonna be really sad someday if something happens to my kids because some chemical that wasn't being looked at properly affects them.
Football has long been celebrated for its big hits and high-impact collisions. And while much has been done to better protect players over the years, pro football still has, far and away, the highest injury rate among the major sports leagues in America. And those threats are not reserved for game day.
The people who play this game take risk. We all know that. But they're risks that should be manageable. They're risks that we should be doing everything we possibly can to at least reduce, if not eliminate. And so for us, it's just core of who we are.
Commissioner Roger Goodell believes he has changed the game of football in his 16 years leading the NFL by placing an urgent priority on players' safety. Under Goodell's watch, head-on tackles have been banned, safer helmets have been developed, and concussion protocols are now commonplace. Health and wellness are at the core of the league now under your leadership.
I think we've made this game safer for the guys who are playing this game.
And one of the first shifts to making football a safer game occurred shortly after Goodell became commissioner, when he inherited fallout from a tragedy that happened not under the bright lights of game day, but during training camp. On August 1st, 2001, Corey Stringer, an all-pro offensive lineman with the Minnesota Vikings, was ready to tackle another year of greatness. The temperature on the field that day was 108 degrees, and Stringer, who was in full gear, strained under the hot sun. It was too much. Stringer suffered a heat stroke, fell into a coma, and at the age of 27, he died.
I miss him terribly.
Stringer was the first player to sign with sports agent Jimmy Gould. How important was Corey Stringer to you, Jimmy?
Corey was special to me on a level that very few can measure up to.
So you lost a friend.
I lost a dear friend.
Kelsey Stringer lost her husband.
There are times when I just really think, what would life be like now?
Kelsey was left alone to raise their son Cody, who was just 3 years old. This is Cody now. He's 24 and did not follow in his father's footsteps. So you're not a football player?
Oh, absolutely not.
After Corey's tragic death, Kelsey says her husband's words continued guiding her.
So his thing would always be, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it?
Doing something, Kelsey decided, meant going to court to demand the Vikings and the NFL pay, in part to fund a center to prevent other players from dying in the heat.
Each year, there's some young athlete who passes out or ultimately dies due to some sort of heat-related illness.
But the team and the league fought back. So Kelsey turned to Jimmy.
I get put in situations where there are battles all the time.
And Jimmy joined Kelsey's battle, convincing Bengals owner Mike Brown, the Cowboys' Jerry Jones, and then owner of the LA Rams, Chip Rosenblum, to support Kelsey's quest for a center to prevent heat-related injuries and death. Then Roger Goodell became commissioner in 2006, and after years of fighting, he pushed to settle Kelsey's lawsuit and fund that center.
Why did you do that?
Kelsey, Jimmy, they both said, we want to do something really impactful that's going to change lives and save lives, ultimately. And to me, that's what we needed.
We do the things that we do at KSI in his namesake.
And that's how the Corey Stringer Institute, or KSI, was born, a research and advocacy center housed at the University of Connecticut, which is dedicated to preventing sudden deaths in sports. In 12 years, KSI got the NFL to eliminate two-a-days and helped mandate heat indexes, athletic trainers, and ice tubs at practices, all to stop heat strokes before they start.
How proud of that are you?
Well, I am proud of that, but I am also proud of Kelsey and Jimmy and so many others. If we can all come together and just make it better for everyone, it's a good place to be.
The tragic death of Corey Stringer has made the NFL a safer place, bringing to life a national center and fueling a movement that's now saving lives at all levels of the sport. Thanks to a courageous widow, a loyal sports agent, and a commissioner who acted to change the game for the better.
And I really, truly believe that we have saved lives.
When they come in and see you and you make them feel important, make them feel worthwhile, make them feel that there's somebody. Good morning, how are you this morning?
The chance to thrive.
You've had a beautiful day here.
It's all we really want, especially for our children.
Good morning, good seeing you.
Gloria Williams, the longtime greeter at this small school housed in a Washington, D.C. church, which we visited this past spring, knows full well the secret to winning each day.
How are we going to count to 27 today?
Begin with kindness.
Each child is treated as if they were somebody special.
Ooh, Dominic, show me five another way.
It's called Chance Academy.
Let me see you jump. Good job, everybody.
Founder Anna Bernanke opened several years ago with only 2 students. She now has dozens with plans to grow.
They need to know that you care about them and that you believe in their potential. You want to share that? Yeah! Oh my gosh! Of course you do!
Bernanke believes young minds shine in a space where they, their families, and their teachers, like DeLeon Ware,
so you're doing the check too? See what you got.
Are supported and celebrated.
And after you do that, I want to see the part whole, because this is outstanding work right here. The biggest thing that I think anybody can take from this whole thing is that it can be done.
It's called Chance Academy for a reason, because they give you second chances.
The child first, loving the child, supporting the child, and then challenging them academically.
Here, tolerance and empathy are foundational, and while mastery of content critical, so is creativity and flexibility.
It could be a hard C, but this is going to be a K, okay?
It just opened my mind up to like so many different things.
Former student Samia Robinson could not wait to enroll her 5-year-old Leilani.
Good job, Leilani.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be really great, and I'm really excited for her.
Clean up your Play-Doh so we can have a mass break.
Bernanke accepts all kinds of students, but the majority are highly motivated Black and brown children from challenging backgrounds.
Your child's going to be in great hands.
Cindy and Josue Escobar are flourishing after coming here years ago not knowing English.
It's literally like if the teacher was just teaching you by yourself.
Yeah, it is supposed to be an A. You knew that.
It's not radical to think that every child needs to be loved. It's not radical to think that every child has a talent, a gift that is precious.
Anna Anna Bernanke's drive to reimagine education stems from a childhood touched by the horrors of genocide.
My parents were Holocaust survivors.
Anna says when her parents, Lenka and Otto, were newlyweds, the Nazis swept through their town in the former Yugoslavia, wiping out her father's entire immediate family. Otto and Lenka literally ran for their lives into the mountains.
I'm here because people sacrificed their lives to save my parents.
Members of an underground network guided her young parents over the Alps into Italy, where Anna and her brother were born. They eventually emigrated to the U.S., where their parents drilled into their DNA that the finest of educations would be their only salvation.
When we moved to the U.S., they had nothing. My mother would say to me, the only thing you have to do is study. We'll make sure you're fed and clothed, but just study.
Anna married a man named Ben, an economist who went on to chair the Federal Reserve. She followed her passion of teaching, but soon found that cultivating wisdom from a child with means was not nearly as rewarding as creating equity in education for someone who was just as smart, but didn't have as much.
So I always grew up with this very keen sense of supporting the underdog.
To realize her dream of building an even playing field for the underdog, Anna Bernanke stunned even her biggest fans.
Maybe what we need is a place with more land.
Bernanke didn't just buy any 10-acre lot in Bowie, Maryland for Chance Academy's new home. She knowingly purchased land symbolic of oppression and inequality.
We're actually on the tract, original tract from the 17th century that was known as Darnell's Grove.
Historian Susan Pearl says for more than a century, the enslaved tilled this land.
They grew a lot of crops. They also had a lot of horses.
Tobacco, soybeans, butter, and hay, the products of bondage.
This is May 8, 1857.
Pearl's research tells us that at the Civil War's end,
Bess, Cass, Sal,
104 slaves were here, including Basil Wood and his wife Lizzie, whose descendants still live in this county.
I think somehow we were meant to find this place.
It's not lost on Bernanke that the children who once roamed these fields in servitude were deprived of a proper education.
We're gonna complete a circle.
Bernanke hopes to fill that circle by 2024 with a campus of buildings nestled not far from Fairview's shadow, transforming a place of inhumanity into one of empowerment. And for Leilani Robinson and her classmates, the chance to realize that opportunity is not a destination, but often the direction you're already heading.